I've spent the last 5 years studying the money management habits of the rich and the most successful and applying them to my life. Through this, I understood why some people end up doing well financially while most struggle. In this video, I'm going to tell you 9 factors about money that will help you get into a better financial state, starting with paying yourself last. What this essentially means is that the moment you get paid, your subscription provider, your food and transportation provider, or any of your apparel provider gets paid first. As in, you start paying out the restaurants, the bars, the clubs that you go to. And if there's any money left over, then that is essentially what is saved in your bank account, or ideally, you're paying yourself last. Most people think that I'll save when I make more. However, during this entire time, you're essentially stuck in a rut as you do not have any savings left over for yourself. If you have a problem saving, then the best way to do this is to automate 10 to 20% of your paycheck and save it into your savings account. Most banks that you bank with offer this feature, and what it actually does is it restricts the amount of money that you have in hand to spend. For instance, if you get paid $500 a month and you've automated 10% of your paycheck into your savings account, it will take away $50 out of the $500 disposable income that you have, which actually means that you only have $450 to spend. This not only forces you to restrict the amount of money that you're spending, but it also forces you to save money. This brings me to not having a budget. There is one major difference between someone who is doing well and someone who is not. And it all comes down to having a budget. Having a budget not just helps you understand what kinds of expenses you are incurring or what kind of money is going out, but it also helps you strategize, eliminate any of the costs such that you can end up saving a lot more money. I started budgeting about 5 years ago when I started taking a dim look at my credit card statements and also at my direct deposits of all of the money that I was paying out. Through here, I started strategizing in terms of how can I maximize my savings, which could be by switching some of the providers or eliminating some of the expenses that I didn't really need. Now, for me, I'm very intense with my money, so I do it on a monthly basis and I go all the way down to the dollar. But if you aren't that intense about money, you can do it on a quarterly basis. You can set up appointments on your phone, which will remind you to take a look at your expenses over a quarterly duration. In this case, take a look at all of the services that you have been paying for. Look at the services that you've barely used 1 or 2 times, but you ended up paying more for those services. Those types of services can be cut for the next quarter. Do this 4 to 5 times, and you'll end up saving a substantial amount of money. Next up on the list is impulse purchasing. How many times has an ad popped up on the screen when you were browsing on the internet, or you saw an item placed on the shelf and you decided to buy it? The worst part was you didn't even need this item. What happened to all of these items? Are they lying around somewhere in the corner of your apartment or in the basement of your house? Or are they lying around somewhere in plain sight wherein you occasionally pick it up, giggle looking at it, and say, I don't know, why did I buy this item? Well, you've become a victim of impulse buying. Companies do this purposely, wherein they market and target you by strategically placing ads on the websites that you are browsing, or placing all of these items on the shelves such that they are visible in plain sight and it engages you to buy. So the next time you see an item like this, think whether you really need this item. Do not buy it on the spot and wait for another 2 to 3 days and reassess whether you really need this item. If you still think that you need this item, then you probably need it. But the chances probably are that if it's an impulse purchase, you won't even feel the need for it and you won't end up buying it. Fourth one is being too cheap. There is a difference between living frugally and being too cheap. Living frugally just means living on a budget and sticking to it at all costs. It's so powerful that Warren Buffett, the fifth richest person on the planet and the Oracle of Omaha, built an entire empire living frugally throughout his life. Being cheap, on the contrary, means buying low quality and low price goods. The difference in the mentality between the rich and the poor is that rich people pay more for premium goods as they care more about the quality of the goods and the premium experience that they get out of it. And in maintaining these goods, they use them for a very long duration without the need to replace them. Poor people, on the other hand, purchase low quality, low price goods and end up replacing them every year. Over a decade, they actually end up paying a lot more than they would if they had already bought a premium good. For instance, 7 years ago, I was in the market to purchase boots. I ended up buying premium quality boots for $300. 7 years on, Although I did maintain them very well, they're still in mint condition and I see them lasting me for another 5 to 7 years. In comparison to that, I had an option to buy a cheap pair for $100, which was one third of the total cost. But I'm pretty sure even with the right kind of maintenance, I would have to replace those every 2 years. Meaning that over the long term, I would end up spending a lot more money.